After an incredible game week 3, I managed to climb 1.3 million places in my overall rank, and I'm going to discuss exactly how I done it. And with 2 free transfers going into game week 4, I'm going to reveal my exact plans for my team to hopefully get me into that top 10k ahead of game week 4. So if you do enjoy this channel, make sure you drop a like on the video. And I've noticed that only 19% of you are subscribed to the channel. If you could do me a favor and smash that subscribe button, it's totally free. I would be massively appreciated. So without further ado, let's get into today's team transfers. Okay, so first up, let's look back at this game week 3 performance and why I did climb the ranks so well. It's worth noting I did get a massive slice of luck from my team, but I will discuss that in a minute. So 67 points for the team. When we look at the overall average being around the mid-40s, I am delighted with that score. And you can see it's now giving me an overall rank of 224,075th. So about a 1.3 million place green arrow, which again, I am just so happy with. So Pickford between the sticks getting 2 points. I cannot believe I went down this route of Pickford and Turner, but I have committed now, so I'm going to stick with it going into game week 4. Spoiler alert there. But 2 points for Pickford. Everton are looking pretty damn woeful with Sheffield United this weekend. It's basically make or break for Everton, and I'm praying they can hold on this game week. The defence, a Stupinan with 1 point. Very surprised to see that Brighton performance. Hopefully we see a reaction going into game week 4. And Chilwell as well with a 6-pointer. Could have been more if he actually did shoot in that game, if anyone did see that. But 6 points would take it and move on. Now the big slice of luck, and the reason why I did get this massive green arrow, is Udogi's 12 points. However, anyone that tuned into my previous video will know I ended up starting Arsenal's Gabriel. I just didn't see a world where Arteta was going to bench him once again with all the injuries that they do have. But lo and behold, he found a way. So I'm so thankful to Arteta for not bringing on Gabriel in that game, as it meant Udogi came on as an auto sub for those 12 delicious points. And I will always be grateful to Arteta for that. Now moving into midfield, patience was key this game week, and we were rewarded for anyone that did stick with that Arsenal and Man United assets. Fernandes coming in clutch for those 12 points and just looking so good in that Man United team. Anything good that's going to happen in Man United is going to happen through Bruno Fernandes, it seems. And Rashford as well coming up with those 7 points. Could have been more potentially, but we're happy with that considering the last few game weeks. And Saka and Martinelli. Saka stepping up on penalties, which it is worth noting. It looks like, I'm not going to say he's the penalty taker going forward, but it definitely looks like he will share the responsibilities, which is decent enough. And Martinelli with a 2-pointer, we will come on to him later, as he might be one of my transfers out. And Mbeumo with a 2-pointer, I know he didn't get a penalty, so you're probably wondering that's why he didn't get any points, but 2-pointer, I'm not rushing with Mbeumo, I'm not panicking with just 1 blank in the opening 3 game weeks. And moving into the front 2, Haaland missing that penalty, but it really doesn't matter because everybody owns him. Did get on the score sheet for those 4 points, which doubled to 8. And Nicholas Jackson, my 1 free transfer I done last week doing Watkins to Jackson, thankfully rewarding itself. He had a couple of chances, but managed to score with that Raheem Sterling assist, getting those 7 points, and I'm more than happy to hold him going into game week 4 with that brilliant home fixture against Nottingham Forest. So that's how the team's looking. And as I mentioned, I'm in a strong position. I got that big green arrow, and I'm going into game week 4 with 2 free transfers and 1.4 million in the bank. So I have lots of different avenues that I can go into. So let's discuss these transfer plans going into game week 4. So it should come as no surprise that I'm looking to sell Arsenal's Gabriel, who had another price fall to 4.8 million last night. I've just had to suck it up, unfortunately, because with the cup games in midweek this week, I can't make early transfers. There's too much information that we're going to learn, potential injuries that could happen over the coming days. It is just worth sacrificing that price fall rather than making an early transfer. That is the way that I play the game, and is the way that usually does pay off in the long term. So I've got the fixture ticker here based on defense difficulty from Fantasy Football Fix, because if I'm using one of my free transfers to get rid of Gabriel, realistically I want to target a team that actually have solid fixtures over the medium term. Now I've run it up to game week 8 because after game week 8 it is the international break, and this is the sort of time I have targeted to potentially use my wildcard if I can hold off that far. So I don't want to look beyond game week 8. I'm just looking at a 5 game week period. So first up, Chelsea top of the ticker, but it's worth noting I already have Ben Chilwell in my team. And do I want to go for the double up of Ben Chilwell and Gusto? Now, Gusto looks like a fantastic option, playing as a right wing back, potentially a right back if Pochettino reverts back to a back 4. My main worry, Gusto, is that it looks like Reece James might be available around game week 5 or game week 6. So I might only get a couple of game weeks worth of Gusto's value. Then if I do go Gusto, I already then have Chilwell and Nicholas Jackson, so it blocks me from potentially going to Raheem Sterling if he does look like he is the midfielder to own in the game. And because of that reason, although Chelsea are top of the ticker for defensive difficulty, I'm going to avoid Gusto. I just can't really justify doubling down on that Chelsea defence and blocking myself from a potential transfer to Raheem Sterling. Now, Crystal Palace doesn't really excite me with any of their assets. Even though the fixtures are okay, I don't really see any of those as value from an FPL world. And the same applies to Luton already having Kabore in the team. Now, one of the teams that does interest me is Brentford. You can see on your screens there, with great home fixtures against both Bournemouth and Everton, an away game against Nottingham Forest. If I was to buy one, Rico Henry would be on the list, and he definitely is on my current watch list as a Gabriel replacement, being a cheaper alternative, which will free up a little bit of cash in the bank if I ever do want it. So Brentford are on the radar. I'm ruling out Everton and Man United, and Man City are one of those as well, which I'm really struggling to invest in. Some people are really big on the Man City defence. I really don't know who is going to start week in, week out. And realistically, they're only going to be getting probably a clean sheet or 2 points. They don't really get in and amongst the goal scoring opportunities for Man City. So I think it's a lot of money to pay for not really any sort of huge upside, apart from what we say is the guaranteed assist, clean sheet. But they are definitely on the radar nonetheless. Fulham I'm not interested in. Already have Udogie. Matty Cash definitely on the radar, but I do think he is a potential rotation risk later down the line. Liverpool I'm avoiding, and Newcastle is the one that I have my eyes on. You can see with the fixtures there, Brentford at home, Sheffield United, Burnley. Some really nice fixtures in the longer term. Someone like a Botman I need to monitor, because if he is fit, he is great value at 4.5 million, alongside if I want to invest up into Kieran Trippier. But let's take a look at some rotating fixtures for my team. So as I mentioned, I've kind of narrowed it down to Brentford, Aston Villa and Newcastle, where I want to move my Gabriel money. Now it's worth noting, Man City of course are on the radar, but as I discussed, I just still don't know where I'd want to invest in that team. So hopefully if we get a bit more information, they're obviously a consideration, but realistically, I don't really need to look at rotating defences with Man City, because that player will just play week in, week out. So what I've done here is I've kind of put the rotation schedule for the current defenders that I own. I've ruled out Kabore because I just never will start him for Luton. But Chelsea is Chilwell, Spurs is Udogie, and Brighton is a Estupiñán, because I don't think he's a desperate sale right now. So first up, Rico Henry rotates pretty well with the other assets. You can see we can bench Estupiñán for the next 2 for his tricky fixtures. We then can bench Udogie for game week 6 and 7, and then Estupiñán again in game week 8. And Henry would do a decent job over this period. Bournemouth at home, I'd argue game week 8, I have to play him away against Man United, which isn't an ideal situation, but I still fancy Brentford against this Man United team, as long as they are playing the same way that they are right now. Now, looking at Aston Villa, similar sort of situation in regards to game week 6. I would have to play Matty Cash away against Chelsea, just because Udogie away against Arsenal might not be as favourable. But other than that, I think he rotates quite well along the way. I'd bench him in game week 4 away against Liverpool. But then, as I mentioned, game week 5, game week 7, game week 8, I would more than happily play Matty Cash. And he rotates well with all the other fixtures, because most of the time, another defender has a bad fixture in one of those weeks, and you can just bench one of those and play the other 3. The one thing I will say about Matty Cash is I just think he is a little bit of a rotation risk later down the line. I don't know whether Unai Emery might look to bench him in those tougher fixtures. So I just need to make a little bit of a mental note on that if he is going to be a risk. But his attacking numbers are fantastic, and that might just outweigh it, that potential risk. Now, last up, as I mentioned, is going to be the Newcastle defence. And this is the one that I really would like to get an investment in, because I still back Eddie Howe's defence, even though they were ropey against Liverpool in that second half. Now, if money is no object, I would go Kieran Trippier. I know they signed Livramento, but I don't expect him to take minutes from him until maybe the Champions League does integrate into their schedule. Also, Sven Botman as the cheaper alternative. But look, Newcastle rotate very well over this period. You could bench them in game week 4 if you wanted to bring in a Botman, but after that you start your Newcastle players in each and every game week, and it means that we're getting basically a good fixture for most players. You can see in the rotation schedule throughout. Game week 6 we have Aston Villa at home for Chilwell, Brighton at home for Bournemouth, and then we play Botman away against Sheffield United. The only one would be a little bit ropey would be game week 7. We'd have to play Estupiñán away against Aston Villa, but that isn't the worst thing in the world, as we would have that Newcastle home fixture against Burnley. So these are the 3 that I'm considering right now, and if I did have to jump on one, I would like to go to Newcastle, just because I back their defence a bit more over that period. But if I want to save money, Cash and Henry are also brilliant alternatives if I don't want to go all the way up into Trippier. So as well as bringing in a defender for my team, I have eyes on a midfield transfer. And I can't really look past Maddison and Sterling, who are both fantastic in game week 3. Sterling being the highest point scorer in the weekend just gone. And it's rightly so why they are on the agenda, because they look like they're going to be talisman for their respective teams. They look like guaranteed minutes, and their attacking threat in their actual team is decent. So I've got the touch heat map from Fantasy Football Fix alongside the underlying numbers per 90 minutes. And we can see Sterling's getting plenty more penalty box touches, which is going to be expected with him playing alongside Nicholas Jackson in a front two. Whether that rule will remain is the question. Maddison, on the other hand, getting more touches in the middle third, but being that creative force in the team. And what I love is that he's on set pieces. So if Maddison was to have a bad game, he could still have avenue to points with indirect free kicks and corners, which I think is a massive part of the game. And when we look at the underlying numbers per 90 minutes, Maddison is leading the way, which is quite surprising really, but he's leading in pretty much every single department. They are similar for XG at 0.38 per 90, but shots in the box, expected assists, all lean into Maddison's favour. But of course, it is worth noting he is more expensive at 7.7 million after getting a price rise last night. Now, we discussed the fixtures. Chelsea, I would say, just lean better than Spurs' fixtures longer term, but I think Spurs are still great over that period. And when we are looking at a potential transfer, I always want to bring in the player that is the heartbeat of that team over a longer period, because this is a transfer that I want to make that's going to be up until my wildcard in game week 9. And I think Maddison does tick those boxes for our teams. I think Sterling's going to be great, but if you already have Nicholas Jackson in your side, do you want to double up on that Chelsea attack? I don't know if I've seen enough. I don't really want to judge everything based on a Luton performance, who I'm thinking are probably the worst team in the league. I feel like Chelsea still have room to grow, which is great from an FPL perspective, but I think Spurs already look a bit more polished, and Maddison looks like the heartbeat of everything good in their team. So if I had to lean towards one right now, I think I'm going towards Maddison. The numbers are good, the heat map's good, and the fixtures are great. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. Moving into my current team for game week 4, you can see that basically the 11 picks itself right now without any free transfers. Gabriel obviously on the bench alongside Kabore and Mabama. And the 11 looks okay apart from the Man United-Arsenal fixture clash. Pickford away against Sheffield United. If he doesn't keep a clean sheet in that game, he is just the worst, and it'll be one of the worst transfers I ever made. A stupid ant at home against Newcastle. I'm expecting a Brighton reaction, but probably not a clean sheet. Udogie, I simply can't bench after the attacking returns that he delivered in game week 3. And Chilwell was obviously going to be the play at home against Nottingham Forest. The midfield, Bremer looks great, but of course, Fernandes, Martinelli, Saka and Rashford all playing in the same fixture isn't ideal, but I don't think it is worth ripping up our teams and playing a wildcard. And up front is Jackson and, of course, Erling Haaland for the team. Now, as I mentioned, 1.4 million in the bank and 2 free transfers. And right now, this is what I'm leaning towards. So with my 2 free transfers, I am looking to sell Gabriel to bring in potentially someone like Rico Henry, Botman, or of course Matty Cash. But currently I'm leaning towards Rico Henry with that great home fixture against Bournemouth this week. But again, that one isn't decided. So that would mean Estupiñán coming on as my first sub, which is absolutely fine because, as I said, he rotates really well over the coming game weeks. And it would be to sell Martinelli to Maddison. Fernandes is a lock in my team. I'm seeing too many good things from him. And Saka as well is simply the asset to own in that Arsenal team in my eyes. And Rashford, I don't feel like is the time to sell him. I think there are frailties in that Arsenal defence, and I do expect goals in that fixture. And Rashford against either Partey at that right-back position or whoever, I think could get a little bit of joy if he does operate off that left flank. So I don't think Rashford's a desperate sell either. Martinelli is one whose minutes I'm really struggling to predict going forward. And I really just want to invest in somebody that I know can just sit in my team, be the absolute hub of everything good that is going on in that team, and are going to get guaranteed minutes. And Maddison ticks those boxes. I feel comfortable already having Nicholas Jackson. I don't know if I want to double up on the Chelsea attack right now. So that is how my team is looking with my 2 free transfers. I'm very confident I will play 2 free transfers just to get my team in a good position longer term. And I feel quite certain those are going to be my moves. But of course, if you want to stay up to date with everything that I'm doing, make sure you are following the channel and let me know your thoughts in the comments. Captaincy would of course be on Erling Haaland. Yes guys, okay, so that's going to wrap up today's video. I really hope that it has provided some value, and I really want to know your thoughts on my team transfer plan, so let me know that in the comments. And if you have any questions going into Game Week 4, fire them away and I'll be answering them throughout the day of the release of this video. So that just leaves me to say thank you so much. Make sure you drop a like and smash that subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Cheers.